You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers about hikers for everybody. Returning to Katahdin, an Appalachian Trail dream. Have you ever dreamt of hiking the AT? Bruce Matson did, so we're going to follow him every step of the way. Hi, and welcome back to episode number 21 of Returning to Katahdin, an Appalachian Trail Dream, sponsored by our friends at Trailtopia. We're up to week number 4, and after 4 weeks on the trail in pretty darn cold conditions, Bruce is through the Smokies. I nearly had just a 15-minute show, as it wasn't until Sunday lunchtime, which is normally the time that the show gets uploaded, that I was able to speak for the second time with him. He's having quite the adventure, and as you'll hear, he's had some really wintry conditions to cope with. But before we listen to Bruce, Trailtopia want to serve you some lunch. How about those days when you struggle through the morning, probably got 10 miles under your belt, and breakfast is a distant memory? It's lunchtime, and you could always have your full Snickers of the day for yet another sugar rush. But sitting there in an empty shelter, protected from the bitter wind, I'm sure you'd really rather have Trailtopia's beef-flavoured ramen noodles with green beans, corn and mushrooms. D-flippin'-licious. And if you need to go without the gluten, all of Trailtopia's ramen noodle lunches and light dinners are available gluten-free. Try Trailtopia Adventure Food, the best of home cooking away from home. I know that Bruce has had some freezing days, but as you probably remember from our lead-up podcast before he set off, he wanted to challenge himself with winter, which means snow, hiking. He definitely got his challenge this week. Among my emails from listeners, one from Bill Ruddy contained a request. He wanted me to remind people that Bruce is raising money for the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, the organisation that makes all of this possible. Bill suggested that I should include a link to Bruce's donate page in our show notes, which I'm very happy to do. Thanks, Bill. Oh, just before we start, my neighbourhood gardening crew decided to do a bit of mowing partway through one of our conversations, right outside my window. So this has been a bit of an editing challenge, but I've done it as best I can. You'll also notice an abrupt start as we had a few connection problems as well. I guess we're starting to find the limitations of communications when you're in the woods, on the mountains, in lousy weather. Still, here's Bruce. All right, where have you just been climbing?
I just climbed Snowbird Mountain.
I'm trying to think where that is.
Pretty steep. It's a climb straight out of Standing Bear Hostel.
Oh, right. That is quite a climb, isn't it? I remember I found the Trail Magic halfway up the mountain somewhere.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's a pretty big grassy bald up here with an FAA tower. And it has it's got a 180-degree view of the Smokies. So I'm looking right across a big valley at the Smokies, where, of course, I hiked out of the Smokies yesterday with a big 18-mile day.
18 miles, Bruce. I thought you had a bad hip.
Yeah, no, hip's good. It's all downhill, 15 miles downhill, and it was either stop at Davenport Gap or just go on 3 more miles to Standing Bear Hostel, and it wasn't too bad. In fact, the hike from Davenport Gap to the interstate is actually a very pretty hike.
Yeah, it is very pretty. And at the end, you go alongside a beautiful river, don't you?
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah. And then from there to the hostel is a bit of even on the pavement, you're climbing uphill. But
yes.
I was glad I got there last night, and guys I was hiking with were there, and it's you've been to Standing Bear. It's kind of an eclectic place.
Rustic, let's say.
Yeah.
No washing. There's no washing machine. There was a washing board though, wasn't there? Which I know there was
right.
one when I was there. Yeah. Did you get any laundry done there?
No, I'm going to be in Hot Springs in a couple of days. I'm going to wait for that.
So you really are moving on quite well now, actually. So what did you do? You had a break in Gatlinburg and got your business done.
It was really the Smokies were sort of like Tale of Two Cities. I went in on a Tuesday, on a pretty nice day, and did that long climb up there, and nice day, good hiking. Ran into little dusting of snow, 2 maybe 3 inches, and stayed at the shelter. And then the next day was sort of the Mike Tyson punch in the face. It was really, really brutal winter weather. I can remember climbing up Rocky Top, and the whole world seemed to be just 2 colors. It was just white and gray. The sky was just completely covered in on top of you. You couldn't see.
Oh, it's a shame. It's because Rocky Top's a great view as well. Rocky Top is a beautiful view. I remember that well. And I think that to a degree, everybody experiences this trail differently, don't they? Because some days, some people go over, say, Rocky Top or Max Patch or various other places when the weather's beautiful, and they think that is going to be the greatest place. Other people will go over there and they can see absolutely nothing. And vice versa, of course. So, you get views some places and you don't get others.
I got really lucky because they tell me that there's only 40 clear days a year on the Klingman's Dome. And I was there for a clear day. So, I think that's exactly what happened.
I meant to ask you the other day, have you, and I certainly don't want to tempt fate, so don't answer it if you don't want to, but have you actually fallen over at all yet?
I've had 2 falls in the whole trip. One was on day 2 or day 3. I just was walking across a sort of an angled flat rock and just sort of slipped and scraped up my arm a little bit, which is healed. Right. And then I don't know, maybe 10 days ago, just in the ice and the snow and the mud, I coming down to a creek, my feet just went out from under me. I just landed on my backside pretty easily. But other than that,
it's alarming when you first go, don't you think so? Because you just don't know how it's going to end, do you? You just don't know how it's going to end.
One of the guys I'm hiking with took a pretty bad tumble and literally said, he fell partway down the hill. Lucky his pack sort of stopped his fall.
Wow.
So it's real. It's real. I think I've been cautious, actually. To me, the chances of falling are more like when you're going downhill. It's steep, the trail doesn't always give you the perfect amount of elevation step down. So I find myself being reasonably good paced on the uphill, but slower than most people in the downhill. I think that's 2 reasons. One is I really am trying to be cautious because it's pretty obvious to me that I could fall.
Yes.
And the other is I think, I've got 60-year-old bones and joints, and some of the jolt by going down quickly is just more than I really want to take.
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, and also, you're not a light guy like myself, and we fall much heavier than some of these kids, don't we? I mean, once again, I don't wish to patronize any of the kids, but some of these younger people say they fall and they can get up because they haven't felt it. But you fall in my case, at the time I was 245 pounds. You fall at 245 pounds. You've fallen.
Yeah, I agree. I do think my pounds have fallen off. I haven't come into hike or hunger yet, and I haven't been eating anywhere near the amount of food that Cheryl's been sending. We've had to adjust shipments and all. So I certainly am got a few extra notches on my belt right now. So it'll be interesting to see how much I've lost.
It's going to happen, though, I'll tell you. The hiker hunger will kick in, and you're suddenly going to find yourself ravenous, and you're going to be desperate for food. But that's kind of part of it, and then you just carry on with it, I guess. So where precisely are you? You're on that climb out of Standing Bear. So what mile is that? 240?
Let's see. I'm on top of Snowbird Mountain. It's a grassy bald. It's 245.8.
Wow. When you think about that, you've walked 245 miles. That's a long way anyway, isn't it?
It's a long way, but there's 1,945 to go.
Good to that 9 more times.
Yeah.
Actually, considering you've been going in some snow and some ice, and also I think the slush is down. When the ice and snow melts, the slush is pretty dangerous as well, don't you? So you had your Microspikes. So only falling twice, I think, is a really good result, Bruce. Really.
Yeah, that's a good point about sort of this stage of the trip because, we talked about Microspikes, we talked about the winter supplement, and I got to tell you, I used the Microspikes 3 out of the 5 days in the Smokies, and I just don't know what I would have done without them. Some of those, as you know,
you would have fallen over a lot.
A lot. In fact, there's 3 guys I've hiked on and off with, and I'm a little ahead of them. They're a little ahead of me. And I asked them, how did you get to, like, there's this recent, mile-long area where the trails kind of got full of snow and ice and packed down and freeze thaw. And it was nothing but ice. And sometimes you see how people have sort of scooted around and created a new trail just to one side or the other. But this particular area, I noted there was just no place to go. And I just walked right through it with my spikes. But later at lunch break, I asked these guys, I go, how did you guys get through there without Microspikes? And one of the guys goes, look, I fell a lot.
That's how you get through it.
It was, that's how you get through it. It can be really tough. So while we kind of bemoaned having, 14, 15 ounces in Microspikes, I think they were incredibly valuable, both in climbing up to Clingman's Dome and in particular going down after all this freeze thaw.
Yeah. Have you still not? Do you still have the Microspikes with you, or have you sent them back yet?
Yeah, I was tempted in Gatlinburg, but remember I hadn't finished the Smokies, and I did send some stuff home in Gatlinburg. Right. But at the last minute, I said, "Nah, this is going to be a mistake." And believe it or not, the very next day in the Smokies, I needed them on some of those down hills where the trail turned ice.
Well, the Smokies certainly point out to you how varied the weather can be, don't they? And you've, once again, like everybody else does, you've seen a variety of weather in the Smokies, and it can change just like that, can't it? So you really don't want to be caught unawares.
Yeah, all the advice is spot on. You hear it over and over again, and so often we don't want to listen to other people's advice. But I had 3 brutal, challenging, very rewarding, but really tough days. I came into Gatlinburg both because of the phone issue and ultimately to rest my hip. And then I went back for 2 more days in the Smokies, the last 2 days. And we had blue sky and beautiful days. And I was hiking yesterday in shorts and a top. So very different.
You've done really well to go 18 miles, I'll tell you, in a day already. You want to take it easy, Bruce. I mean, you're not a young man. And talking of which, by the way, I got a question from a John Dupras, Dupras. And he couched it with, I guess this question's okay as we're all north of 60. So you probably know what's going to come at you now. It's about how do you deal with getting up in the middle of the night to pee, or do you not? You probably heard a bit of a silence there. And that didn't end for another couple of seconds. I think Bruce was a little taken aback by the question, the reason for which I will play you later. But when he sorted himself out after about 50 seconds, he did his best. Here's the family-friendly answer and the rest of that conversation.
Men are known to, use a bottle to avoid getting out in bitter cold nights. So that's certainly one thing that is available, and I've taken.
Got to make sure you do it up tightly, though.
Well, be careful with your the rating for your show.
Well, I think the answer is you cope depending upon the circumstances. On a decent night, you probably want to get out, but it's an interesting question because you've gone in a really early time, so you knew it's going to be cold, and it does get colder at night as well, doesn't it? So it's one of those things you have to address when you're out there. So
no, I don't. You're absolutely right. I was just making a more of a family-friendly answer, but we had 3 nights in a row under 20 degrees, and each night the wind was blowing. No one wanted to get out of their tent or the shelter. Now, I don't know about shelter behavior because that is not something I did or would do in a shelter, but in your own tent, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, look, you took your while on that one, but okay. I might edit it. I might not. We'll see how it goes. But lovely that you're doing well again. You're nearly 250 miles. I find that just amazing. So fantastic. All right, mate. Well, I'll catch up with you later in the week, and we'll see where you are then. And you should be in or past Hot Springs. All right. Take it easy.
All right. Take care. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye. But that wasn't the end of it. When we'd finished talking for the show, we continued chatting and laughed about the listener's question. And Bruce shared this.
Cheryl's going to say, did you really have to answer that question on podcast?
So there you have it. He's a gentleman and he didn't want to offend his wife. What a star. Talking of which, John Duprat, thanks for the question and the extra editing that I had to do because of Bruce's reluctance to answer. Let me have your address and we'll get a couple of Troutopia meals headed your way. Then, from Bruce, radio silence. Maybe you thought I'd ask him again about how he gets up to pee in the middle of the night. Who knows? But Sunday morning, I got a text and we were back on again. I soon found out that he'd had, let's just say, a bit of weather. Here's Bruce again.
Sir.
Hey, Bruce, how are you?
I am doing fine.
This is Sunday morning for everybody, and we normally have got this recorded before then. Let me just turn my volume down. That's better. Okay. Yeah, you're doing okay, are you?
Very well, thanks. Yeah.
And where actually are you?
Let's see. So yesterday I walked out of Hot Springs, right. On a kind of a cold, rainy, a little bit of sleet, a little wind, pretty cold and crummy day. But if you keep moving, you stay warm. And
it's quite a climb as well.
The forecast was not good, and I was trying to plan my 5 days into Irwin, which is really your next stop. Yeah. And so I did 16 miles yesterday into Hemlock Hollow Hostel.
All right.
And I have to tell you that I've never been so thankful to have a roof over my head than last night, because it poured unmercifully. And we had lightning and thunder and one big crack over us that was just amazing. So it was a good night to have a bed.
Doesn't it make you feel very grateful for the luxuries you have in life when you literally don't have those luxuries, and you say you were very grateful for a roof over your head, but you really mean that, don't you?
Absolutely. And I didn't have my own sink or my own bathroom or my own shower, but those were nearby, and you are grateful for all those things. And it was such a bitter, bitter cold day as the day got lingered on, when just to be in a room where there's some heat you're very thankful. So there's a fair number of people. We probably had 8-10 people there, and good atmosphere and nice place. And again, it poured and poured last night, and very glad to have that roof. And got up and get going pretty early today, about 8. And the walk's been relatively, I might say that I'm probably 7 miles into it today. This might have been the easiest vertical climb so far. It's just, you look at the map and it looked like a pretty good climb today, but the way the trails brought us up smoothly, it was and the other guys around here, we remarked when we took a break how smooth and easy that climb was, and we expected it to be tougher. So it's been a good day.
Have you passed Tenured Gap yet? Because I'm now looking at the map.
Yes, been past Tenured Gap.
Oh, right. Wow. Okay. And then there's still a bit of a climb up to Rich Mountain Fire Tower, isn't it? And there is a side trail for that. But that goes higher. It goes higher on the trail, so you may not want to go there.
Yeah. So, no, I'm now, I'm probably a couple miles from Jerry Cabin, going kind of down a little bit and pretty level.
I can't find that. Wow, that's interesting.
We were at about 290 last night. That's where Log Cabin Road is, 290.
Oh, wow. Oh, you're well past Hot Springs. I didn't realize that. Oh, that's
yeah.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah, it was a pretty long day. I think I got 16 in. Yeah.
according to this, Jerry Cabin, for the year I went, Jerry Cabin was 300 miles exactly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's 301 this year.
All right, cool. In fact, tomorrow you go over Big Butt, which is a great name. It's actually a lovely walkthrough. It's a lovely walkthrough there as well. So I think you're really going to enjoy that. So tell us, how have you been? Are you solving all the world's problems with the solitude that you're getting from your hiking? Because you said about giving some thought to things. So how's that been for you, alone with your thoughts?
Yeah. I was thinking about that the other day, meaning that I was thinking about how I haven't been thinking about the world's problems and how after, I think tomorrow is my 30th day, or maybe today is. And I was thinking to myself, I'm spending enough time figuring out how to hike and camp. It's time for me to solve the world's problems. So
yeah, get onto it.
I have to admit that I haven't been very productive with my time. I just been trying to figure out. Someone said the other day, I was at Elmer's at breakfast, and one of the people said, "You have all the time in the world to do very little things, but it seems like we take up all of our time to do those few little things." And I think that's pretty well said.
That's very profound. That's very true.
Yeah. And so, but I feel like I'm comfortable and confident about most of, I'm going to make mistakes and this and that. But, I've been through enough rough weather that I think I can deal with that and know how to handle, making good decisions and sheltering when you need to. And so I do need to get more productive with my time.
I think part of it is that you've got so much time out there. You've got a long time to go, and a number of people have said to me that by the time I got to New Hampshire, they thought, "Oh my God, I've only got 2 more states to think about what I'm going to do next." So it's funny how the time goes. I tell you, it really is.
Yeah, I'm going to try to be more productive in terms of. Working towards world peace while I'm on the trail.
Yeah, work on it, please, for God's sake. So, so you've had some pretty bad weather, haven't you? You said the other day when we spoke, it was you referred to it as hellacious.
When did we last speak? I can't remember.
Well, we spoke yesterday morning for a few. Well, I think it was text for a few minutes. But before, I think it was Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah. So I think. The story's, reasonably interesting. So, I went to Standing Bear, which is kind of a must stop, eclectic place. And I was told by a few friends ahead of me, said, "Do not go there. It's a dump, blah, blah, blah." I went and had a good time. It's a crazy place, but we had a good time. There are some friends there.
I think it really is a vital part of the experience.
So then, hiking out of Standing Bear was a pretty big climb up to Snowbird. That's when we spoke.
Yes, that's right.
To the top of Snowbird, and it's a bald, and that's when we spoke.
That's right.
Later in the day, the weather turned bad. I had to come up short of my objective. I took a stealth sight as it started clouding in and raining. I was a mile from going over Match Patch, and I didn't think going over Match Patch when the weather was up in the air was a good idea late in the day, and I was getting tired. I was 3 miles from where I was trying to go. Yeah. So I did. I sheltered down and got my tent set up quickly and got inside. And, once again, I'm very comfortable in there. A couple other guys showed up and said, "Hey, we like your spot. Can we sit here? Can we camp here with you?" And that was fun.
Sure.
And then I woke up the next morning with 5 inches of snow and ice on my tent. And that was fun figuring out how to get that taken down. And then the next mile, I was on top of Max Patch at 8 a.m. with about 40-mile-an-hour winds. And some people say, you should not have gone across Max Patch when you did, but I didn't really know what else I was going to do. It was cold. I wasn't going to hank it down, and I guess I could have stayed in my tent, but I went across with almost zero visibility, a foot of snow because of the drifts.
Wow.
And it was snowing hard from the night before. It was still snowing, and the rest of that day was just as hard, if not harder, than my hardest day in the Smokies.
Wow.
And I got to Walnut Mountain Shelter, and I had to make a decision. I knew I couldn't get to the next shelter, and I knew how many people were ahead of me. I knew what the weather was like, I knew if even I got to the next shelter, I wouldn't have a spot in the shelter. Both these shelters were 5-6 person shelters.
That's right.
So I knew I was going to stay at Walnut Mountain because there was a spot when I got there, or I was going to be tenting, and it was blizzard-like conditions, and that's what people have been referring to it as the last couple of days, is blizzard-like. And that shelter sits on the top of a ridge, and the wind was whipping over, and it's 1:30, and I'm sitting thinking to myself, I am not going to sit in a sleeping bag for the next 20 hours trying to survive on top of this ridge. And I just said, hey, I know it's snowing like crazy, but I feel good. I got a lot of daylight, and I got to get to a lower elevation and find a better solution. So I tore down Walnut, and then I had to climb one big climb before I could get to lower elevation. I had to go up Bluff Mountain. And I would say that, so far in my 29 days, my most horrendous experience was climbing Bluff Mountain, because the cold was there, the wind was there, snow was coming down pretty hard, blowing horizontal. And all I did was just start trudging, head down, and I got to get over this mountain and get down to lower elevations.
That's pretty high as well, isn't it? Bluff Mountain's pretty high.
It is. And the last half mile, the more exposed, and the trail was blown over. The drifts were up to my knees. I was losing the trail because I couldn't follow anybody because the drifts were filling in the foot spots. And it was just, there are those moments when, if you don't keep your wits about you say, well, what am I doing? And am I at risk here? But I got up over Bluff Mountain, and then I started, heading down, looking for a tenting spot. Had a lot of trouble finding anything. Now we got 10, 12 inches of snow on the ground. And I kept looking at Guthook and AWOL to try to find the spot. And a couple of spots were noted. One of them I walked right by. It couldn't have been too good a spot because I walked right by and didn't note it as an option. And then all of a sudden I realized I was going down fast enough. I was going to come to a gap where there was a road. And long story short, I called in and got a shuttle and got into a warm bed that night. So I kind of bailed. I feel a little bad that I bailed, but it was downright near dangerous conditions when I was doing all this. And Hot Springs was a mess with all people like me trying to get out of it, get off the mountain and the like.
You totally did the right thing. All your friends, the people I spoke to, your family and your friends, said you would make the right decisions. And that was absolutely the right decision to get off. If you feel a bit threatened, this is meant to be fun. It should not be life-threatening. It should be life-enhancing. And the fact that you chose to get off was definitely the right decision. So from there, did you go into Hot Springs then?
Yeah. So I went into Hot Springs, got a bed. It was great. And the next morning, the sky had cleared. It was a blue sky. And I did the last 6 miles that I had to skip. And that was one of the prettiest hikes of the whole day, the whole trip. It was a very pleasant, not very difficult hike. 6 miles. I was on the trail by 8:30.
Back where you'd been picked up, and then
right.
back into
I got a shuttle back out.
Yeah, cool.
And I walked right into Hot Springs, and I was literally back at the hostel at noon. And so I had a Nero, and then I took a Zero the next day, and did a bunch of writing. I went to the hot springs and got in the natural hot water and did a little pool, as they say. And it was very good, refreshing to have all that after sort of the challenging, horrendous experience. So it's been very eventful.
It has,
but I feel really good. Yeah.
Hang on. Are you regretting the start you've had, or are you grateful for the adventure you've had so far?
I'm completely grateful for it. It's harder than I expected. But if we go back to some of the interviews we had, one of the things I said was, I may be crazy, and I know you thought I was, and maybe I was, and maybe I am. But I said to you, I want to challenge winter hiking. I want to challenge winter camping. If I'm going to go do this, I want to see what it's like to put yourself out there in harsh conditions. And it's almost like it's a script. I got more than I asked for, and maybe a little harder than I thought. But when lots of people can relate to this. When you take on a really tough task and you can, pull it off, there's an enormous sense of reward to doing that. So it's been hard. I tell you, it's harder than each episode. I've had some really tough episodes. The hardest thing I was thinking about last night when I couldn't get warm for a minute is for 30 days, we've had 23 bitter cold days, and it's just unrelenting.
Yeah.
You can't stop. I was listening. I went back and listened to, because I hadn't actually. Cheryl asked me, "Would you listen to the podcast?" I didn't even listen to my own podcast. So I was listening to talking to you about stopping for lunch at Justice Creek and Lance Creek, and how lovely it was. How people come up and share with you. And I'm thinking, that's another world. We can't stop long enough out here to do that because it's below freezing. Yeah. So now that was today.
I'll say it's starting to warm up. Hopefully it's starting to warm up today, isn't it?
Yeah, today was milder. Actually, a bunch of us had an early lunch at one of the shelters, and we noted how we hadn't been able to do this for so long.
Cool.
So
where'd you stay in Hot Springs?
I stayed at Elmer's.
Oh, I love it there.
And
a great place.
So glad I did.
Yeah.
It was, I could have stayed at a lot of different places, but I said, it's kind of like Standing Bear to me. It's an iconic stop on the AT.
Yep.
And Elmer's been there for over 40 years. And I had a ball. I had just a great time there. I enjoyed the meals with him.
Beautiful
it's
food.
A good location. And I would really recommend it to anyone else because it was just a unique but really pleasant visit.
That's so cool. Well, let's say you're 300 miles down, only another 1,800 or 1,900 to go. So you're nearly there again. But when you think about all the adventures you've got to come, you've already had a huge adventure by this cold, and now you're going to get the benefits. I guess you've got 300 miles under your belt. Your legs must be getting stronger. You've done an 18-mile day, which just blows my mind. But good for you for doing it. And do you feel strong as well? Do you feel quite? Do you feel you're getting physically better? Yeah.
You've been asking me that, do you have your trail legs yet? And I was telling you I couldn't. I was having trouble determining.
Yeah.
And the last day in the Smokies, there was one pretty good climb just before you go into that long, long downhill.
Yeah.
And I kind of raced up this 2-mile steep uphill. And I got to the top and I said, I think I've got my trail legs. I mean, I felt so good and strong. And I do. So I would say the last couple of days I've had enough experiences where I think they're kicking in. Like you said, you've been asking me and I've been having trouble judging it. But I feel like even this morning, there'd be 2 young guys behind me. And I keep expecting them to catch me and they haven't caught me. And I think I'm getting stronger.
You kind of know it when you know it. For me, it was going up this big hill before we had the big downhill into Irwin, Tennessee. So that's a long way into the height before I got my trail legs. But I was motoring up there and I didn't understand what was happening. And suddenly I realized I've got my trail legs. They're working fine now.
Yeah.
And after that, it was never really a problem. Well, look, I'm glad we called up. I really am, because I was getting kind of nervous. It's now lunchtime on no, not at all. No, you could call whenever you can call. I would have put out that single conversation we had before, and you'd be delighted to know that I've edited out your original response to the question that you were asked this week. I don't know whether you remember it, but the listener's question. Do. Yeah, right. I've edited it, but I think you'll have a bit of fun.
That's okay.
All right, mate. Well, look, you carry on, and lovely to talk to you, and happy trails, 300 miles. You're doing great, Bruce. You really are.
Yep. I'm feeling, I've had kind of a new enthusiasm the last couple of days. So I
Fantastic.
think, accomplishing the difficult task and having a good break in Hot Springs has got me a new sense of enthusiasm. So I'm having a lot of fun.
Very cool. Okay, mate. Well, you take it easy, and I'll catch up with you next week.
All right. Good, Steve.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.
Man, that sounded a little bit frightening, though I must say that Bruce's preparations are definitely hitting home. He knew that this would happen. He prepared for it, and when it did happen, he made smart, sensible choices, which is precisely what his friends and family had said that he'd do. For anybody listening out there, that should be an excellent lesson on what to do when you feel a little bit uncomfortable on the trail. There are plenty of roads crossing the AT, so find one, get a shuttle or hitch a lift, and get somewhere safer and, in this case, warmer. I'm a bit disappointed that he isn't a little further along the road in solving world peace, but I guess you can't have everything. He's having a great time, he's behaving as he said that he would, and he's full of enthusiasm for the adventures still to come his way. One last thing. I know that you've all heard my Hiking Radio Network bumper at the beginning of the show, and I'm sure several of you already know this, but we've added a couple of more shows to the network this week. Along with this show, there's my show, Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, and this week saw the first episode of Trail Dames by Anna Huthmaker. She was a wonderful guest on the Mighty Blue show a few weeks back and a natural podcaster. She'll be introducing strong, supportive hiking women, fellow trail dames, and I hope that our women listeners particularly get a kick out of that show, though men, of course, will also be welcome. The other new show is Dixie Live on the Continental Divide Trail. Jessica Mills, or Dixie, is about to start the Continental Divide Trail, and we're going to be following her. This is going to be a premium show on the Hiking Radio Network, which will be live from April the 1st. The first 3 episodes of Dixie's show are free for you to see if you'd like to subscribe. The link will be in the show notes. From April, we're going to have about 8 to 10 shows each month, with updates published between 1 and 24 hours of recording. The cost will be less than a cup of Starbucks, at $4 a month. Once we get our 500th subscriber, we're going to start giving monthly prizes away, and if it grows much beyond that, the prizes will be weekly. These are exciting times for me and my podcasting colleagues. I hope that you support the shows and enjoy all the great content that we're going to be bringing you this year. In the meantime, Bruce and I will see you next week.